Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Hyperion Strings library from Soundiron, and it's their newest library that they just released at the recording of this video, and it's a very interesting library in their approach. They went for a drier and more detailed library, which caters itself really well to more contemporary styles like pop and rock and that kind of thing. And as a result, they used smaller section sizes in order to get that detail and let it actually cut through the mix and be noticeable in a track. So let me just play through it a little bit. You can see here in the patch list, it's very compact actually. They have violins, violas, cellos, and basses, and ensemble. Like in some other string libraries, they have a full articulation list, and like 60 patches you have to load in yourself. But in this one, all the patches are actually laid in right there, all the articulations. So let's just start a little bit and see what this sounds like. And you can see that sound dissipated very, very quickly. So this is what we call a dry library. And that's why, one of the positives of a dry library is that you can really use your own reverbs and your external plugins to really process it, to put it in your own space and really affect it how you want. With a built-in reverb or with a pre-baked in reverb, it really sounds as if you can't really do too much of it. It's a little less flexible because it already has that natural ambience of that hall. So if you want to put it somewhere else, you have to do some more tweaking to it, which, I don't really know how to do, so I don't really touch it that often, but that's a big positive of a dry library, which this one is. The controls, let's talk about just a tiny bit. So the body adds a bit of low end to it. So at 0, it's very thin. We add a little bit. And that's great. Attack delays the sample by how much you want. So at 0, it comes in right away. Offset, it seems like it stresses the attacks just a little bit. That's the results you get. Release is kind of self-explanatory. It kind of determines how much of a release you hear after you let go of the notes. So it's a little bit more than when it was at 0. It's not as obvious as some of the other controls here. And release volume is how loud that release is. This vibrato here, I believe, is scripted because the performances themselves already come with a good natural vibrato, which, as you can hear here, right? Now if I add this vibrato, right, so it's not so much of a vibrato, it's more like a pulsing. So I prefer not to use this. I actually really like the natural vibrato that comes with the sample, so I tend to stick with that. And now if I turn on the legato, so it's a perfectly serviceable legato. Not entirely sure if it's scripted or recorded, but either way, it doesn't really matter because in most situations, people are not really going to be listening for, oh, is that transition from that note to that note realistic? No, right? They're just going to listen to the music and say, oh, this is an awesome song, or these strings sound really good. Let's talk about some other articulations here. So we've pizzicato. So again, very dry, but it sounds really, really good. And actually, for the demo I wrote for Soundiron, I used the pizzicato patch only. So let's go with these staccatos. Some people might not be a fan of the very dry nature of this library, but again, it only means that you can really design it to how you really want it to sound. Because on the next page, which I'll show you with the effects, it comes with an EQ and compressor and all that stuff. So you can basically design it to exactly how you want. And spiccato is basically even a shorter version of the staccatos. Right? So if you want to do like a or something like that, you can add in your own reverb and it'll sound very cinematic. Now the crescendo longs and the decrescendo long are probably my favorite articulations in this patch, aside from the pizzicato sustain. Here, just have a listen. Imagine that with a beautiful reverb. That would sound amazing. And then decrescendo. So really beautiful. You can really hear the passionate sound in that performance. Something else I wanted to mention here. You have different vibrato styles. So here's clean, which is without vibrato. Vibrato with vibrato. And blend, you can do a bit of both. I prefer just to stick with vibrato myself, but if it's really just for a pop record and you're trying to go for a lyrical string line on top, then you can use a blend to really shape it to how much vibrato you actually want. Let's move on to the effects. So here we have a compressor, an EQ, and a filter. Filter is really where the heart of everything here lies. You can really mangle and do whatever you want to the sound. You can make it sound like aliens are destroying the earth. You can make it sound like someone's piercing your ears. Or like someone's whistling. So you can really do whatever you want. Compressor basically is self-explanatory. The lower it is, the more compressed it is. Ratio, makeup, attack, release. All standard compressor controls. EQ is low, mid, and highs, and you can adjust how much EQ and how much frequencies you want. Now here's the built-in reverb, and you can see here they have a bunch of options. So let's just test this out a little bit. Go back to sustain mode. And that sounds pretty good. Let's move on to chamber. Cool. Large room. I think one of my favorites is hallway, actually. Like it doesn't hang on for too long. It's a perfect amount of resonance for me. Here is an extra detailed panning knob here. So you can put it farther back or up front and also left to right. So it's a good depth control there. And again, you can have your little bit of EQ here. The amount of wetness. Yeah. So the wetness itself kind of adds in a little bit of a, it basically cuts out a bit of the high end. So it makes it sound less detailed, and it also adds in that tail, reverb tail, the more wet it is. And the size basically extends that even further, and really you can have a huge reverb tail, just like that. So all in moderation, there's a lot of possibilities that you can do. Play assist is really cool. For example, let's say you're not the best keyboard players and you want to use one of these here to help you out. When you hit the F, it'll actually turn into an F sharp. Okay, so because in G major we have an F sharp, and I'm basically playing all the white keys, but when you get to the F, it'll become an F sharp. Same thing for all of these here. So B major. Yeah, as we would expect, I'm playing all the white keys, but we have those 5 sharps applied to the C sharp, sorry, the C, D, G, A, and B. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And then arpeggio, you could basically, you know, we're used to seeing this from other libraries like guitar libraries and that kind of thing. But if I turn this on, here I'm just playing a chord, and you can see it's actually going back and forth between these. If I wanted a trill, for example, I could play that. And, okay, let me change this waveform a little bit. There we go. You can see some parts it gets louder and softer, and that's according to this graph here. And then finally, we have a run. So let's see. That's pretty cool. I'm literally only just playing one note, but it's doing the run down for me. Cool. So that's basically it. That's it for the violins. And all these other patches are very consistent. So it has all the same articulations, just a different recording of a different section. So these are the violas here. Turn up the volume just a touch. Okay, pizzicatos. Crescendos. You get the idea. Celli. So very cool, very nice chamber detailed sound. And finally the basses. You can really hear that bow there on the strings. Really, really cool. And again, you don't lots of detail there. It feels like it's mic'd very closely, so you can actually hear it very intimately. And of course, very cool. And finally, we just have an ensemble patch here, and that kind of throws everything together. Now you'll notice here that really the lowest note we get is a middle C, and it's possibly adjustable, but I haven't found out how to do it quite yet. So again, this is kind of a combination of the upper strings patches here. And as always, ensemble patches are best used for sketching. So if you have new ideas, then you might want to turn to an ensemble patch first, just to get in any notes that you're thinking of. So that's basically Hyperion. It's a very new contemporary string library, and again, it's very super dry. So if you're looking for a wet library with a very nice natural ambience, this might not be the one for you, but this allows you to fit it into your own ambience. If you have a good set of reverbs, or even just one, good stock reverb in your DAW, you can apply it to this and it'll start to sound amazing. These spaces or these reverbs in the patch, they do sound quite nice, but I personally would use my own, as I did in my demo for the library. But in any case, it's a beautiful sounding library because of its detail and amount of options that you can do with it, especially in sound design and manipulating the sounds in general. Yeah, and you have all the instrument sections here, so you're not really lacking anything. You have the basic articulations of sustain, legato, pizzicato, staccato, spiccato, and crescendo, C crescendos. Things like harmonics and colligno, like that type of stuff is not as necessary. So that stuff they can put in their more complete library versions of this library. But the micro is a very good starting point, and I think it's only $50. So for anyone who needs this chamber library for pop and rock and something that can just add an extra layer of class to their productions, I would definitely recommend this library. So thank you so much for watching. Leave me any comments if you'd like to see anything else. I'd be glad to hear it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Soundiron next has to offer, because this is a great step in their world of orchestral sampling, and a quite different and unique approach, which I really enjoy. So thank you so much. I will see you in the next video, and take care. Bye.